There's been an outpouring of support for Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho and Bukayo Saka after the three were racially abused across social platforms after the Euro 2020 final. We've also seen in recent days the outpouring of love and messages posted on Marcus Rashford's mural, which was also subject to racist graffiti. In the recent days, we've seen arrests made, a university withdrawing the offer to one of the offenders, and much more positive moves after a very, very negative image over the last week or so. Shaka Hislop is now joining us. Do you think, Shaka, with everything that we've just seen, there will be more changes when it comes to situations like this?
Well, it depends on what we mean by more changes, Kay, and there's a wider issue around racism in society that still exists, but this only highlights. I think, as I always have, the game and its community can drive so much of our social change, and while we recognize the best of that community and how powerful it can be in driving that change, let's also remember we're 3 months out from UEFA proposing lifetime bans for players who took part in the Super League. Yeah, we're 4 months out from Andre Cardella getting a 10-match ban and Glenn Kamara rather ridiculously being suspended 3 games for being racially abused himself during a game. I mentioned Andre Cardella and his ban because we're 6 months out from Kieran Trippier receiving a heavier ban for accused telling his friends about his move ahead of time. So you see where the leadership is in terms of the severity of the offense and the messages that they send. I can only hope that football leadership and political leadership learns from the example that the football community, the right-minded thinking football community, has shown over this last week.
You're making a good point there, Nedum. Obviously, we've seen these moves from the British police when it comes to the arrests from universities getting involved. But as for social media platforms and the football organisations, it does seem there's so much more that can be done.
Yeah, 100%. But it's like Shaka's alluded to there, this is the football community. I think the issue of racism itself is a different one. But it is good that, there has been that sort of outcry of support. But for me, I think the reason for it in this particular instance is because of the events that happened after that game. They removed the grey area, so people are faced with this situation where they have to accept that they think this is right or they think this is wrong. And when you realise how wrong it is, it's very hard to just ignore it. You almost have to get involved and say this is wrong. People going to show support, that's terrific. But the other side of that coin, I think, in my lifetime, this last year has been the most where there's been any discussion about racism, equality, and so on. The platform's been there, people have been speaking about it. But a year later, those 3 players probably received more abuse after that game than they've ever done so in their life. So realistically, it shows that, there's a bigger thing that needs to be done because people still think it's okay to think like that. People still think it's acceptable to say what they say because they think they've been wronged by these people who they don't think are like them. And to go to it, to make it very, very clear, I think for some people who do, have racism in their heart, the reason for it is because they consider people like myself and like Shaka to be less than human beings. Like, how do you change that? Because people will continue to do this. All the conversations we've had, I feel like they all make sense, but for some people, they don't care. And then even now, when we talk about UEFA and all those other governing bodies, the fact of the matter is, until financially they're affected, they choose not to really come down too hard on things. And I think that's such a poor position to be in because, like, football itself, it could lead the way, as Shaka said, because there are lots of right-minded fans there, lots of right-minded players, and this should be a game that's available to all. And if you come in with the right mindset, you can be competitive, you can be whatever you want, but just don't be racist. It seems so simple, but, not enough people have gotten behind it because otherwise, if they did, we wouldn't be in this position now in 2021.
You talk about players and teams taking it into their own hands, and we've just seen just this week the German Olympic soccer team have walked off the pitch after one of their players was racially abused by a player from the Honduras team. Now, it's alleged racist abuse because Honduras are claiming that it didn't happen, but Jordan Turunaraya was the player in question. His team decided to walk off the pitch. Their coach said there is absolutely no way we will continue to play a game when one of our players has been racially abused. Do you think we're going to see more of this happening, Nedum? Them walking off the pitch, so. Not the racist abuse.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, and I think we will see more of it. And I think we should, because I think in this instance now, there are more players who understand the depths of what's going on in society. Like to talk about one of my friends in particular. So I'm really good friends with Jordan Henderson, and I think a few years ago when there was that issue between Patrice Evra and Luis Suarez, you know, he was trying to get on the side of his teammate, his player, and all this stuff. But Jordan's a different person today because he understands the full context behind it. And I think with that, he's grown. I think lots of other players have grown because you've gained an added perspective when you hear the stories, when you hear about the experiences that people have had, when you see the abuse that people are receiving. And for that Germany side, you know, they want to compete at the Olympics. They want to do well. But they know that the game should be something for everyone. There shouldn't be discrimination in there. And even if something from the Honduran side may be misunderstood from that perspective, I'd rather the German players walk off and say this isn't acceptable to us because this is unacceptable in terms of what you've just said to this person. And I think that level of empathy, I think there's more of a platform to be able to do so now, and more people that understand how important it is, because that action there could stop it from happening to the next. And I'm all for it because it's something that needed to happen a long time ago, and it seems like now is going to be the moment.
Would you agree with that, Shaka, in that action like this can educate others?
Absolutely, and I think it's important. Nedum is 100% correct in everything he says, and I think more action like this is needed. Not just in incidents like we saw recently, but I think as well with bigger clubs, bigger name managers also making similar statements. So, for instance, Italy has had their problems. Nobody needs me to detail that right now. But Carlo Ancelotti, when he was managing Napoli, I think it was, he said, if anybody in my team is racially abused, I'm pulling the team off the field. This is not going to be a discussion. It's not going to be on the players. It's going to be entirely on me. When somebody like Carlo Ancelotti, with his standing in the game, with his standing in the Italian game, makes those kinds of pronouncements, it forces FAs into action, into preemptory action, and I think that's what you saw. And if more managers with the standing of Carlo Ancelotti the world over make similar statements, I think it forces FAs into taking actions that they've been a little bit slow in taking up to this point.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.